WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD, your South Shore's radio station. And you may be listening, you never know, after the fact to the podcast, because we do take the entire program, we put it on our podcast channels, and you can find it on your typical podcast places, iTunes and all that sort of stuff.
Sometimes we get the entire program.
Yeah, sometimes Jesse only sends me like 20 minutes of it. So
we call that a little preview.
Preview. Yeah, that's what they. As a professional podcaster, Jesse, you know that terminology much better than
me. Get the people warmed up, you know.
That's right. In fact, one of the podcasts they asked me, is this a full program or is it just a bonus? So either way, works out. Hey, we've talked a lot about electric vehicles. Last week we had the general manager of electric vehicle charging portable charger on to talk about electric vehicles and how maybe you don't have to set up a whole, big charging station at your house. You can do it pretty simply and easily. But maybe you're thinking about buying an electric vehicle. You look at some of the surveys, and a lot of people are really thinking about buying an electric vehicle as their next vehicle purchase. In fact, when we were talking with Kyle Bauer from iccars.com, he was saying that electric vehicles are still some of the absolute most researched vehicles on their website. And with us is Jesse Lohr. He is the owner of a electric vehicle basically a used car lot up in New Hampshire. And Jesse, good morning and welcome to the Car Doctor program. But you're more than just an electric vehicle salesman. You're an educator as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on today, Doctor. I spent 12 years in the wheelchair accessible van industry and really helping people make that transition when them or a loved one had a disability. And I thought that, there's really an opportunity as people start making the switch to an electric vehicle to take that educational process out to those folks who are looking to make that transition, because people have a lot of questions. A lot of people are interested, they're researching, but they're not sure if it's right for them. So Greenwave Electric Vehicles up in Northampton is a place where people can come and learn what they need to learn to make that switch in a positive way.
And near where I live, there's a small used car lot, and they'll have 2 or 3 or 4 electric vehicles. You have quite a bit of extensive inventory and a variety of models when I was looking at your website this morning.
Yeah, John, one of the things that we wanted to show was the sheer breadth of vehicles that are out there that can meet people's different tastes and lifestyles. We believe that you shouldn't have to make a ton of money every year or have a big old bank account to be able to make a switch to a fun and fossil fuel-free vehicle. So we have vehicles starting at around $15,000 all the way up into the 50s. And on all of those vehicles, you're going to save a lot of money off buying a brand new one, even with the tax credits involved. So we help people find something that's going to fit their budget and their lifestyle, help them understand the local and federal incentives that are available to them, and we help them save money and get into an awesome car. And we also, we're not brand specific, right? So yeah, people think of EVs, they think of Tesla, and we've got plenty of Teslas, but we also have, Chevy Bolts and Nissan Leafs and a Hyundai Ioniq 5 and a Kia EV6 and an ID4 and the Mustang Mach-E, because every brand right now is coming out with some really awesome electric vehicles, and we want to give people a chance to try them all out.
Yeah, it really does make a big difference. And one of the things I like about your website and your business in general is explaining to people what the difference is between an electric vehicle and a plug-in electric vehicle and a gas hybrid. I happen to be driving the newest Toyota Corolla hybrid right now. Great vehicle. You don't plug it in, but thing gets about 50 miles per gallon, and it's a typical Corolla. It feels like just a pretty nice little car. But it's nice that you're able to help educate the public about what all the differences are.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And, we have a whole section about EV learning on our website, everything from the differences between a gas hybrid and plug-in hybrid to the used EV tax credit. There's a $4,000 used federal tax credit for used EVs, and all the impacts of, switching to an electric vehicle on climate change, which is really core to our mission. But a lot of people don't understand the plug-in hybrid category. To your point on the Corolla, it's a great vehicle, can increase your fuel economy significantly, but on a gas hybrid, you're always going to be using some degree of, gasoline. Whereas with a plug-in hybrid like the Chevy Volt or the Prius Prime or the RAV4 Prime, you're going to get 20, 30, 40 miles of pure electric before you use any of that gas. The studies show that the average American travels fewer than 30 miles per day. And so if you get a plug-in hybrid, you can get all the benefits of an electric vehicle, right? Fewer oil changes, you don't have to replace your brakes as frequently, you're not paying for gas, but with a plug-in hybrid, you do have that gas backup if you ever need to go on a long distance and you have that range anxiety.
And what's nice about most plug-in hybrids, although you can charge them up, and we'll get into charging in a minute, but any of the plug-in hybrids that I've driven in the past few years, plug it into a 110-volt outlet, even though you may have used up the battery. And there was, when I was pre-COVID, I was commuting about 100 miles each way back and forth to work, 100 miles round trip back and forth to work. And although if I drove a plug-in hybrid, 30, 40 miles, then it would switch over to gas and act like a conventional hybrid. These days, I'm driving more like the typical vehicle owner, that 20 or 30 miles a day. And yeah, I can drive a plug-in hybrid every single day and never use any gasoline and plug in at night off a regular 110-volt outlet, and it charges up just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was our family's first step into electric vehicle. We got the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And that was kind of a revelation to us, right? Because we were looking for a minivan. We had young kids and, 2 dogs, so we needed that space, and we weren't really ready to make the switch. But then with the plug-in hybrid Pacifica, 30 miles of charge. We did end up getting a level 2 charger for our house because sometimes in the morning, we would go out and, go run some errands, and then you can come home and plug it back in and you're back to 100% in under 2 hours, right? But if you did just want to plug it into a 110 and you're only driving 30 miles in a day, that's really all you need. And sometimes we don't put gas in our plug-in hybrid for 2 months. Because it lasts that long and we're not driving that much. So plug-in hybrids are a great option, and they do also qualify for the used electric vehicle tax credit because they have a 7+ kilowatt-hour battery. So talk about an electric vehicle that you can get for a net cost of around $10,000 is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And the idea that you're like you said, you went to level 2 charging at home when we had Michael Baum on from Juice America last week. Their charging system's pretty unique because it also takes advantage of the 20 amp outlets that some people have in their garages or by the side of their house for, running the, electric stuff that they, whether it's, electric lawnmowers or whatever. But that idea that it's off a 20 amp circuit charges, instead of the 3 or 4 miles per hour, all of a sudden it's now 6 or 7 miles per hour. So you get a little bit more, a little bit quicker battery replenishment, which is nice without having to add any extra circuitry to your house, which is also kind of nice.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I really think that, when people come to us, one of the things that we do for them is we help them understand how much their electricity bill is going to increase versus their fuel bill decreasing to really figure out kind of what's that day-to-day savings. And the truth is, your cost of energy, whether it's gas or electricity, is going to be reduced, in our experience, 80 to 90%, right? And so you've got a lot of fuel savings there, a lot of cost savings there. And then also we do help people at Greenwave. We can provide the charging box for them, and we can help get them set up with an electrician, which that can also oftentimes cost a couple $1,000s, including all the equipment and the installation. But at Greenwave, if you're financing the vehicle with us, we can also wind that into the financing, so you don't have to come up with that extra cash. It's just an extra couple bucks a month, and your house is all set for it.
Yeah, and really when people look at electric vehicles, I recently just drove the GT version of the EV6. Great car. Oddly, Kia doesn't include a charging cable, which seemed odd to me, but they didn't. And so I had to rely on level 2 and level 3 charging. And somebody asked me how expensive it was. Well, I recharged the battery from about a 20-mile range to about a 200-mile range in about 23 minutes at an Electrify America charging station, and it cost less than $10. So I gained about 180 miles of range for $10, which would be about half the price, and probably even more than that now, with that I would have paid for gas to go the same kind of distance. So electric vehicles can save you money depending on how much you pay for electricity, and versus what the cost of gas is. How do you handle? And I'm sure you probably get some people that just come in that kind of maybe they don't want to electric car so much, but they want to learn, but they also maybe want to play devil's advocate a little bit and say, yeah, well, the electricity comes from a coal-burning power plant. How do you handle those kind of questions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the truth is, we love when people ask those questions, because a lot of times you don't think about where your electricity comes from, but then you get an electric car and you're like, okay, how do I have clean electric supply too? And we help people make the transition to 100% pure, clean electricity with a company called Think Energy. In Massachusetts as well as in New Hampshire, it's deregulated energy supply, so you get to choose who your supplier is. Now, whoever does your delivery, whether it's Unitil, National Grid, Eversource, they're going to continue to, own your meters, own the lines, and do your billing. But, if you come to us, we can help you switch for no cost to a green energy supplier. We love Think Energy, and that can reduce your costs significantly. So, John, when I switched from Eversource to Think Energy, I went from 22 cents an hour to 13 cents a kilowatt hour, and so basically saving 39% off my electricity bill and getting 100% clean energy. So people just don't know that they have that choice in these states, but when we help them figure it out, they can make the switch. And somebody wants to email us, we can help them make that switch. It takes 5 minutes. You get clean energy and reduce your cost. It's a great question.
And let's talk about electric vehicles in general. They're just fun to drive. I mean, the people that love internal combustion, and there's a bunch of them. I was at a car show yesterday evening. 150 gasoline cars there that made all kinds of noise. But electric vehicles, unless you've driven one, you have no idea what they're really like performance-wise. They because of the way the batteries are typically mounted, they tend to handle really well, and the performance is crazy fast.
It is. I mean, look, at Greenwave Electric Vehicles, we are not here to try to talk anybody out of their internal combustion engine car. If that's what they want, that's fine. But we just think, in fact, we believe very strongly that electric vehicles have the best performance of any mass-produced car on the market right now. The acceleration is fantastic. The handling is wonderful. The technology is top-notch. And people also don't realize that electric vehicles are pretty much the safest vehicles on the road these days. And the reason for that is most of the manufacturers have put their best safety features in terms of technology into these vehicles. Automatic collision avoidance, automatic emergency braking, blind spot information systems, rear cross-traffic alert. All these things are great in these cars. So performance, acceleration, speed, and let's not forget fun, John. I mean, these cars are super fun to drive, as you were saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so let me get this right. If I buy an electric vehicle from you, you're going to plant 100 trees in my name somewhere?
Yeah, that's right. We have a partnership with a nonprofit called One Tree Planted because we realize that making the switch to an electric vehicle is only part of the solution to helping address the climate crisis. So we plant 100 trees in your name when you buy from Greenwave with our partner One Tree Planted, just to extend your impact. Because the one thing that we like just as much as awesome electric vehicles is beautiful forests.
There you go. It sounds real interesting. And when you buy an electric vehicle or any vehicle, eventually it's going to break down. How do you handle servicing?
Yeah, so we have great partners right next door to us, East Coast Automotive, and we actually like that we don't have a shop because it kind of holds us accountable to have a top-notch shop right next to us. But people often ask, what's the maintenance like these on these cars? And John, I've had my Ford Mustang Mach-E full electric for 2.5 years, and there's not really a lot of maintenance. I mean, I get snow tires in the winter and all-season tires in the summer. I have the same brake pads on my car, and they've just passed inspection for the second time, over 40,000 miles. No oil changes. I mean, there's not really a lot of maintenance. But for the things that you do need maintenance, a lot of times you can go to your local tire shop or alignment shop, and then if you need bigger things, we do take the vehicles to the OEM dealers. So the Chevy dealer for the Bolts or the Nissan dealer for the Leafs, you could take them there as well.
And the shop next door to you, I believe, I've heard of them. They're a high-end Mercedes, BMW, Porsche repair shop, right?
Yeah, they are. They are fabulous guys over there. Mark and Dylan, we're really lucky that we're right next door to them. So we put all of our cars through a rigorous check with them, and we want our cars that we're selling to be held to the same standards that they would want their personal Audis or Porsches or BMWs held to. It does cost us a little bit more money to do it that way, but we offer a 30-day, 1,000-mile warranty at no cost to the purchaser on all of our vehicles. So we want to make sure they're in great shape.
And everything I saw for sale had a Carfax report that went with it, right?
Yep, we absolutely provide a Carfax. Auto Check is one of the ones we use from Experian as well, so you can be sure, if there's any, problems with the history of the vehicle, we're going to, disclose that to you because, one of the things, some of the cars that we've had have been in minor accidents. We don't believe that if a car is in a fender bender that it should be, thrown away in the junk heap forever. But yeah, we provide that full transparency. We also provide transparency with the battery history reports. If you go to like our Mach-E's or our Chevy Bolts or our Nissan Leafs or our Teslas, there's a little recurrent battery score. Recurrent Automotive is an amazing company that they do battery reports for electric cars, and they do a lot of research. So you can be sure to get some transparency in what's the health of that car battery. What's the range today? What's the range expected to be in 3 years? So we want our purchasers to have as much information as they can when selecting their first electric vehicle.
That's a really good point. And I've heard that some Tesla battery packs are lasting 400,000 miles.
Yeah, it's a misconception that EV batteries last as long as internal combustion engine cars. The OEMs have all said that their batteries are rated, from 200 to 300,000 miles. Tesla has said 300 to 500,000 miles. The truth is, we just don't really know how long they're going to last because EVs have not been out that long. But we do know that the batteries deteriorate at a range at a pace of approximately 1 to 2% per year. So in other words, if you have a 250-mile range vehicle this year, it might be a 248-mile range vehicle next year. And batteries are end of life when they're at about 70%. So, to your point, it's gonna, cars are gonna last a long time. I mean, John, I often say that in the Northeast, the rust is going to get your car before the battery is going to give out, is what the data is telling us right now.
Yeah, that really is true. And, people do have this range anxiety thing. And, what I have found is the people that have the biggest range anxiety are the people that don't own an electric car. At AAA, the AAA that I work for, we probably do about 3 million road service calls a year. And we track the electric vehicle road service calls we do every year, and they're not for people that have run out of electricity, I think, and we do some mobile charging now. I think we've done 1 or 2 mobile charge calls. Most of our calls are for people that have gotten flat tires, and I think just about every electric vehicle that I've seen doesn't seem to have a spare, which is a little bit of a shock. As do 120 other makes and models of cars on the road that don't have spare tires.
Right. And the no spare has more to do with efficiency and keeping the vehicle light. But one of the things we get people on who have range anxiety, we take them onto the PlugShare website. That's plugshare.com or the PlugShare app. And people are astonished at how many chargers there actually are on the road. And so we show them where all the chargers are around their house and where they want to go on vacation. And, there are $350 billion worth of chargers going into the ground over the next year to 18 months based on the Infrastructure and Jobs Law of 2021. But if that all doesn't satisfy someone and they say, so what do I do if I'm driving down the road in my electric car and I run out of battery? And I ask them, I say, have you ever been driving in a gas car and run out of gas? And they say, no. And I say, well, don't start now.
Yeah, exactly. And the difference is when you wake up in the morning, you have essentially a full tank of electrons if you charge up every night, and chances are you're not going to drive 200 miles on that
right.
on that day that you take your electric car out. And for some people, and I've run into a little bit of a I don't know, it became political at one point. I said, maybe the future is the hybrid garage, an electric car in one garage behind one garage door, and a gasoline or a plug-in hybrid behind the other garage door. And people called me elitist for wanting to have 2 cars and a garage, neither of which that I have. But the idea that maybe in the near term that is the future. You have your electric car that you drive every single day, and when you want to drive to cross country and you don't want to have to plot out charging stations on your ride, you take the car that's the plug-in hybrid or the gas car and use it then. But for 90% of your driving, that EV is going to work.
Absolutely, and that's what we are as a family. We have one full electric and one plug-in hybrid electric, and it works really great for us because we like to go, on ski trips in the winter, and with the cold weather, you are going to lose some range on your battery, and there aren't chargers everywhere up in the North Country right now. So, having a plug-in hybrid is a great balance for that. The average American family has, 1.8 cars, right? So a lot of people do own 2 cars. We don't have a garage. We just have a driveway, and we could still put our charger in it. But I think that's a really good solution, is to go to the 1.5 electric vehicles. It works for our family.
I still get confused with that 1.8 cars and 2.3 kids, but but anyway, if people want to find out more information about your company, or if they want to come up and just get a little bit of education, or if they want to learn from your website, it is greenwaveev.com, right?
Yes, it is. And you can find us on social, on Facebook at Greenwave Electric Vehicles, on Instagram at Greenwave EV, and on LinkedIn as well. And we have a TikTok, but I'll admit, John, I don't really know too much about TikTok. Our marketing coordinator handles that, so check us out on TikTok too.
Yeah, you won't find me on TikTok right away either. But anyway, so Jesse, I want to thank you for taking a little time out, and I want to remind people though, if they are going to buy an electric vehicle, there is a used electric vehicle. There is a pretty significant tax incentive to do that as well. That you mentioned, it's up to $4,000, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an article on it on our website because there are some income limitations, there are some vehicle limitations, and there are reporting requirements for both the purchaser and the dealer. Greenwave is fully set up to handle all those reporting requirements to the IRS. So, we would encourage you to, if you are considering a used electric vehicle and you want to get that $4,000 tax credit, make sure whatever dealer you're working with is well versed on, both sides of the reporting, because, you want to get that money if you qualify for it, and that's a lot of money, John. $4,000 off a $20,000 car, that's for 20% off from the government. So go to greenwaveev.com. You can fill out a contact us if you want us to reach out to you. We love to just chat with people. So really appreciate all you're doing for the automotive industry and exploring EVs, John. And thanks for having me on the show today.
Jesse, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right, sounds good. Bye now.
Take care. That was Jesse Lohr. He is the proprietor, the owner of Greenwave Electric Vehicles up in New Hampshire. They reached out to me to talk about that, and like I said, electric vehicles very, very popular with a lot of people. They're looking at them where I live right now. I'm seeing more and more electric vehicles every day, even though there's pretty limited charging network where I am, but people are driving electric vehicles. I recently went to the local mall near where I am, and I think about half the charging stations had vehicles plugged in and charging up at them. So people are taking advantage of them at the same time. So it's different. It's when we had Brian Loans from who's the sportscaster on Fox Sports, talking about drag racing, and I asked him about electric vehicles, how it fits into, things that, explode and smell like nitromethane when they fire up. And he's like, it's just another form of racing. It is, at first it was, big V8s, and then it was, some of the four-cylinder Asian imports with turbo and superchargers that were as fast going down the 8th mile as some big V8 gasoline cars. And electric vehicles is just another form. So they all work together. Can you like things that smoke and explode and make all kinds of noise, and like electric vehicles too? Absolutely. Why don't we take a quick break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Attention job seekers, are you ready to fuel your career? Join us at the Irving Market and Cafe in Pembroke for a job fair on August 8th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is your chance to shine. Bring your resume and meet our friendly team in person at 92 Washington Street in Pembroke, Massachusetts. With full-time and part-time opportunities available, we have the perfect role for you. Whether you're just starting your career or looking for a change, we want to meet you. Can't make it to the job fair? Book a virtual interview at irvingoil.com/Pembroke. Join us at the Irving on Tuesday, August 8th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 92 Washington Street in Pembroke. Fuel your future at the Irving.
Talk radio with a South Shore point of view. Hi, I'm Kevin Tachi. Join me tomorrow for Monday Night Talk, where the South Shore comes to talk. Tomorrow night after the 6 o'clock news here on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Just to give you an idea of what we got going on over the next couple weeks, we have, next week, we have Miles from Miles on Motorsports. He's going to be joining us. The week after, I think that is the 20th, we're going to be talking to Scott Shemtoff. He is from Empire Car Covers. I hate to say it, but as we get into August and then September and fall, we start to think about maybe putting your toy car away for the winter or at least covering it over so it doesn't get stained with leaves and stuff like that. So we're going to be talking to Scott coming up. Then at the end of August, we're going to be talking to Ernest. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name, but it's Marinyuk. I don't know, but he's from a company called Upfix. And if you've ever had a computer module or a dash or instrument panel that doesn't work. This company's out of Georgia, and that's what they do. They started fixing all kinds of different electronics. So if you have an older car that the ECU is bad, you can't find a new computer for it, these guys fix these things, and they have this really quick turnaround. I discovered them a little bit ago, so we're going to talk to them. And then later on in September, we're going to be talking to Keith from Innova. Innova is the scan tool company. And they incorporate their scan tool and their app together, and they have some pretty interesting scan tools. I'm testing out one right now. I gotta say I have kind of mixed feelings about it though. I like it's got a rechargeable battery. It's tablet based. It's an Android tablet. Good big screen to look at stuff. So far on some of the newer cars that I've been looking at, it hasn't been a huge success. So we'll have to keep track of that. But that's what we got coming up over the next few weeks. So we hope that's interesting and entertaining to you as well. Our phone numbers, should you want to join us. Sorry, I got distracted there for a minute. 781-837-4900. Let's talk to Tom in Kingston. Good morning. Hello.
Are you still there?
I think I am.
Okay,
I'm still here.
Yeah, I got two questions, but before I get to the two questions, after that conversation you had with that gentleman with Wealth of Information, when you do go to these stations to get your vehicle charged, if you have an electric car, do they charge money for that?
Some of them do. Some of them don't. For instance, when I was driving that Kia EV6, where I live right now on Cape Cod, there is not a charging station to be found. I shouldn't say that. There's one at a hotel, but you have to be a hotel guest only. If I drove down to Chatham, for instance, if I went to the Chatham Bars Inn, I would have to buy like a $25 margarita or something to get my car charged. So they would so they charge it for free, but you can't afford the food when you go there. So but there's a park and ride in Harwich, and they have, I think, 6 or so charging stations there, and they're free. They're trying to encourage people to drive electric cars to the park and ride, leave them there for the day, take the bus to Boston or wherever it is, and then they do it for free. Over at the Votech School at Cape Cod Tech in Harwich, they also have some charging stations. I think they charge like $1 an hour to use theirs. Interesting, it's the same company, but they actually have a fee. When I went to then I went over to the Cape Cod Mall in Hyannis, and they actually have charging stations by Bosch, which is actually the parent company, who is it's a Bosch charger, but it's actually Shell Oil that is running the charging station. Okay. Then they have one by, I think it's it might be Blink, and then they have a third set up way at the edge of the mall that is Electrify America, and their charging station is they have a variety of them from 150 kilowatts up to 350. I went at first with the 150 kilowatt one because that's one I backed up to, and I looked at it and I went, oh wait, there's a 350 kilowatt one right. So I started to charge. I unplugged. It didn't, it was there for a minute and it didn't charge me anything. I went over to the 350 kilowatt one, and to do the equivalent of about 180 mile recharge, it cost me $9.60. So
I would to do that from home. If you charge, I assume you can charge it from home.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference between buying gasoline and charging it at home? Is there any?
The best I can figure out at our crazy Massachusetts electric rates.
Right.
It's about right now with gasoline closing in on $4 a gallon, it's about half the price. When gas is down to about $2 a gallon, it's about the same. Now in Florida, at the Tin Shack in Florida, I'm not paying 24 cents a kilowatt hour. I'm paying like 13 or 14.
Wow.
So it's a little bit cheaper down there. Although it's not cheap this month because it's been 100 degrees just about the entire month, it seems like. So the air conditioner's been running a lot, so my electric bill's reflecting that. But
So where are you now?
oh, I'm on Cape Cod, but I leave the air conditioner on set around 80 because
the humidity.
it's humidity and mold. So and besides, I just got the house back to being fixed. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to hit you up with my two questions. The
Go
first
ahead.
one is I have a Dodge Grand Caravan, 2007.
Yeah.
And it's got rear air conditioning. And the hoses going to the rear, of course, the high-pressure side, of course,
Yep.
is leaking. Where can you get hoses made or purchased to take care of that? My auto mechanic's got that look on their face like, I don't know. Is there a place that makes them up, or is there a place where you can get them?
I haven't seen anyone make them up, but I'm sure that a little bit of work. I think you could probably find them. Where you said it's a 2007.
Yeah. So what happened was I called Junior's shop. I figure if anybody knows, he knows.
Yep.
And I talked to one of the mechanics because Junior was out, and he says, "We really don't know, but I think I would try like a bus." Location, because usually the buses make up these different hydraulic lines. Somebody who makes up hydraulics can probably make one up. I said,
Yeah.
what about the stop leak stuff that they put in there? He goes, well, I'm not too big on those. That's what
Yeah.
one of the mechanics said.
Yeah, and that is one of the things. It works pretty good. Some of those, whether it's AC Pro is one of the companies, they work pretty good for.
You're saying AC
For like
Pro, CRO?
AC Pro PRO.
Oh, Pro. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they work pretty good for if you have seals that are leaking. But if the hose has actually gotten porous or the metal is bad or something like that, then it becomes a little bit harder to, it's not going to seal. So, and while we're looking, I was just kind of looking at. Rock Auto, which always has a pretty good selection of stuff to see if they have they have anything listed as a rear, and they show some lines. Let's see what this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So.
See, mine's converted because handicap van, so I have the handicap, and it's got the AC going to the back. And
right.
First, my mechanic says, "Hey, we just cut that off and just use the front." I say, "Nah, I really don't want that. I want to have some AC in the back."
Yeah. No, and there's Four Seasons, which makes a ton of air conditioner products. They make hose assemblies. That's what they do. And it looks like they might have a rear AC line for this. So maybe a lot of shops don't like to use.
What's that called?
Rock Auto and Four Seasons. Four Seasons is the company. So maybe have them check with Four Seasons. They are a manufacturer of hose assemblies. That's what they do. So I'm sure if they are able to get a hold of them and see what they have, maybe they can get a line on getting it. The other possibility is where. Is the AC unit for was that a custom unit installed or was that the factory rear AC?
I think it was put in afterwards because I think they converted it. They put I don't know what they call it, like a drop floor.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Whatever that is, where they lower the floor so it won't be too much of an incline going up the ramp with the wheelchair. So I don't know if they use the same or not. I'm not being able to get underneath there and take a visual on it. But at least you give me some resources.
Yeah. I would look and see what they have. I know for like home AC, they make up AC lines all the time and braze them up. I mean, they have to be a little bit different with the car because there's more vibration involved. But I would think they could make something up. I mean, it's,
sure.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing: if I want to buy a vehicle on eBay, and it's down in Florida and over here in Massachusetts, is there resources down there that I can send a mechanic down there to check it out to see if it's a good vehicle?
Florida is one of those places that I have seen more mobile mechanics than I have almost anywhere. I have seen, more people, say, oh, I use Joe's mobile mechanic. He comes right to my house. He does my brakes for me. He does my, does this, does that. I find it sort of weird that they have that in Florida where it's hot and miserable, but I guess maybe because the weather's nice, 8 other months out of the year, working outside, is a good thing to be able to do. So, but yeah, there are. I would, wherever the vehicle is located, I would do a little bit of searching on, Facebook or somewhere and look for a mobile mechanic, and they, probably charge an, hour or so labor to kind of go through the vehicle and see if it needs anything.
Because we bought a vehicle before from Pennsylvania, had it shipped up, and it says immaculate condition, blah blah blah, and end up putting about $2,300 into it. And when I called the owner, they said, "Well, we'll split it with you," and because they're not under any obligation to do it.
Right.
And it was too old. It was it's actually the 2007 Dodge Grand Caravan. I guess eBay only goes a certain length, and that's it. And so the guy was kind of cool about it, but I'd rather, if I'm going to spend more money on another vehicle, I'd like somebody to be my eyes down there and check it out, take it for a spin, put it from park to reverse to drive, and, all the good stuff, check the engine, trainee, all around. Give me an idea what's going on.
No, it makes sense. Way back when AAA had the Auto Diagnostic Center in Rockland,
yes,
and I ran that, every once in a blue moon, and it was once in a blue moon, I'd get a call from somebody who was buying a car. This was probably almost pre-internet, and I would get a call from somebody, and they said, I'm interested in buying this car. I saw these videos, but can I get the car brought over to you where you can look it over? And I'm like, this is a little bit awkward, but yeah, I guess so. And tried to take a bunch of pictures of things that I saw so they knew. Tried to look for things that was. I remember it was one of the cars was an older car. It was probably certainly an antique these days, but it wasn't maybe quite an antique. I think it was maybe it was a 240Z or something, and it looked like there was some rust repair that was done that was kind of covered up with undercoating, and you don't want to beat on somebody's car too much, but I looked at it and I said, I'd be a little bit questioning on what was done here and why there was this fresh undercoating, enough to make me suspicious. Well, we're still talking. There's a company called Cold Hose, COLDHOSE, and they are a custom hose builder. And it says, Cold Hose is an automotive air conditioning fitting and hose website. We carry a full line of AC fittings, hoses, charge adapters, O-ring seals. The fittings and hoses are indexed by size and thread size. Cold Hose has weld-on barbs, compressor adapters, much more. If you need a custom hose, please see the custom hose page for more information. So you can get them made up. And they have them in varieties of sizes. They kind of explain the benefits. I have no idea how much it costs, but you kind of match them up to what you want. And they have all the bits and pieces to put them all together. So you certainly can. Yeah, so coldhose.com. So maybe have your mechanic talk to them, and they can figure out what the hose is that's bad and kind of mock one up, and then let them know it's 6 feet long or 8 feet long, and it's got this connector at this end and this connector at the other end, and they can make it up and put it all together for them.
So did you get rid of the house up in the Rockland Abington area?
Yeah. We sold that. We sold that a couple years. Well, I guess it'll be 2 years this November. A couple who had an apartment in I think Whitman or Abington bought it, and the idea behind that was that that would go towards funding my retirement. That little house that we lived in for 40 some odd years. So, So, and then there was a hurricane. So, a little bit of that retirement money got spent on repairing hurricane damage. But
now you've got a problem. Where do you buy your turkey sandwiches?
I know that is a problem. That is a problem. You're absolutely right. So,
thank you so much for all that.
All right. Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our phone number again, 781-837-4900, and I don't know if people are really interested in my retirement plans, but yeah, that was sort of the plan. Was the little house that my wife and I lived in forever and ever and ever. We sold it, and the bad thing is I never got to hang out with Jesse. Other than on Sundays, and he didn't live that far away from me. So look at that. I want to talk about the car that got me around the last couple weeks ago, actually now, and it was a Genesis, and Genesis is a luxury line of Hyundai, and it was the full-size Genesis G90 sedan, which is the flagship of the Genesis line. Power is provided by a V6 engine. The base engine develops 380 horsepower, and the optional V6 engine uses something I've never seen before, and it was a 48-volt electric turbocharger. So instead of having a turbocharger spun by exhaust gas, this one uses a 48-volt battery system that's part of the Genesis, and that spins the turbocharger. It doesn't do a huge amount. It adds 29, if my bad math is correct, 29 more horsepower, up to 409. So the electric turbocharger does away with turbo lag, because one of the things that happens with turbocharged cars, you step on the accelerator, the exhaust gas has to spin the turbocharger up to really high speed, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do that. That's why Ford uses their EcoBoost, which tends to do it a little bit quicker. Some other cars don't do that, but the electric turbocharger, there's no lag, so it happens really quick. The G90 is an interesting vehicle, and one of the few cars that I have tested that's designed, in the words of Genesis, to satisfy both customers who take the wheel themselves and those that are driven by chauffeurs. Now, I've never been driven by a chauffeur, so I don't know quite what that's like, but it is designed to be chauffeur-driven as well, so makes it kind of interesting. And it comes with an extensive list of standard features, including all the driver assistance stuff, leather upholstery, massaging seats, which I find personally annoying, but you can shut them off. Although after a couple hours, it tends to turn back on again. But it is an interesting vehicle. 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system. The interior is designed to pamper not just the passengers but the driver as well. The G90 competes with the likes of Mercedes-Benz S-Class, Audi A8, BMW 7 Series, but it undercuts their price by thousands of dollars. Both engines are paired with an exceptionally smooth shifting 8-speed automatic transmission. In the case of our road test vehicle, all-wheel drive. Fuel economy, should you care about such a thing in a luxury car, isn't too bad. 222 miles per gallon. G90 also has a large fuel tank. You can get about 500 miles of highway driving. It's not a sporty car. It's a comfortable, refined car. It glides over bumps and potholes. And it has this adaptive suspension system. It's not new. It's been used in other vehicles, but it sort of anticipates the bumps in the road. So it sort of looks at the road and adjusts the suspension before you hit the bump so it doesn't feel quite as bad. I don't know how it does it on New England roads because our roads are awful, but it also isolates the cabin from road and wind noise. It's a really quiet car inside. And it also uses electronic noise canceling. So as quiet as it is by padding and structural and all that, it uses an electronic system that one noise cancels out another noise, which again is not new. We've seen it before, but they package it in this vehicle. The steering is light and precise, not really particularly engaging. It's not a sports car, and it doesn't pretend to be. The brakes are strong and smooth. I drove this car from Maine back home. It's got to be one of the smoothest, quietest vehicles I've ever driven. It's designed to pamper you in luxury. That's what it's designed to do. The exterior design is quite nice. The interior is, the highlight of the car, spacious, luxurious, well appointed. The materials are high quality, and the fit and finish are excellent, rivaling the best luxury vehicles. The front seats are supportive. I think they're 22-way adjustments or some crazy amount. Heating, ventilation, and like I said, the annoying massage function. The rear seats are equally comfortable, roomy, reclining, heated, ventilation, and massage as well. Trunks large enough to, according to Genesis, I think holds 4 sets of golf clubs, something I will never need to do. The infotainment system is easy to use. The touchscreen supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. has a 23-speaker sound system. Now, I'm old enough to remember it was a big deal when I added a second speaker in the back of the car. So, it's like, ooh, I got music that comes out of the back and the front. 23-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, wireless charging, navigation, satellite radio, Wi-Fi hotspot, all the technology you can imagine. The G90 safety features are impressive and comprehensive. It comes with standard and adaptive cruise control, lane assist, blind spot monitoring. You get it. It comes with everything. It has something called driver assist. It can steer and accelerate and brake the car on the highway. By brake, I mean apply the brakes, not brake it. You know what I mean. The G90 is an excellent choice for anyone looking for a large luxury sedan that offers performance, comfort, and style, and even value. Do people look for value at an expensive car? Sure, they do. It may not have the prestige or the sportiness of some of its rivals, but in my opinion, has everything else you could ask for in a luxury sedan. If you're in the market to buy something like a Mercedes S-Class or a Lexus LS, look at the Genesis G90. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Why don't we take another break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
4 in a Row will be at the West Bridgewater Gazebo on Tuesday, August 8 at 6 p.m. 4 in a Row from East Bridgewater is a young 50s and 60s era rock and roll band with a wide variety of covers and a handful of originals. The Wicked Flavor food truck will be at the gazebo with their awesome menu, as well as Black Hat Brew Works and Danny's Ice Cream. Hope to see you for 4 in a Row at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, August 8 at the West Bridgewater Town Gazebo.
This is my time. Hey guys, it's Lexi James.
And we're Crier Creek.
Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio Sundays on 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com.
Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook.
And visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tomorrow night from 7 to 9 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. A couple of questions from the mailbag this week. Somebody writes in and says, what's the proper way to repair a rusted brake line? I have a vehicle that the front brake lines are rusted and leaking. Well, a little bit of a story here. When I was 16 years old, I purchased my very first car. I don't know, maybe I wasn't even 16, but it was my very first car. I don't even think I had a driver's license. It was a Rambler, and it was $50, and it wasn't a great car. In fact, when I got it, we got it home and realized it was skipping. It actually had a bad valve in it. My father knew an old-timey mechanic that ran a little one-guy shop, and he went down and showed me how to do a valve job. He had his own valve grinding machine, so we were able to repair it pretty inexpensively and got it back together. But it also had a brake line that went bad, and it might have had more than one. And brake pedal went to the floor, like all single master cylinder cars. You had no brakes and rusted out brake line. Well, my father worked for a plumbing company, and he was not a mechanic, but like a lot of people his age, did everything. He was a plumber, he was an electrician, he was a carpenter, and in this case, he was a mechanic. So we went down to the plumbing place he worked for. We got a coil of 3/16 copper tubing, a single flare tool, and some compression unions. And looking back at this early repair, I'm lucky I didn't die, because you don't use copper tubing for, it's made for plumbing. It's not made for high-pressure hydraulic brake lines. You should double flare everything or use a European bubble flare, depending on the car. Double flare, you kind of squish the metal down, and then you use a flare tool, and that reinforces it so it fits better. And compression unions are great for some stuff. You don't want to use a compression union on high pressure brake lines either. But we put it all together. I had brakes. I drove the car for quite a while. Never had a problem. So, but what you should use is steel brake line. You should double flare everything. You can get pre-made, something that when I worked in a garage, you could only get them from the dealer, but you can get pre-made brake lines that are already made up. They're bent and got all the right angles and bends in them, which is very handy to have. If you are going to connect a old brake line and a new brake line together, and you found a piece of old brake line that's still in good shape, you should use a double flare and a mechanical union, a threaded union. That's the way you want to put it together. And also, when you go buy brake lines, you can, I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons to buy one over the other. There's stainless steel, there's soft steel, and there's even there's a copper steel blended line. It's pretty expensive, but it bends nice and easy, and it has the softness of copper and the strength of steel. Pretty expensive, but if you're going to do a lot of custom brake lines down in Florida at the Tin Shack, my next door neighbor has a Saturn SC, the sporty Saturn, and he went to drive it. Brake line went to the brake pedal went to the floor, or almost to the floor. The two brake lines that went from the master cylinder to the ABS pump, right where they attached they had this like rubber insulator that was mounted to the body of the car to keep the brake lines from vibrating around. Right there where they attached, that's where they rusted, and they rusted out. So we went to the auto parts store, bought some brake line, and I said to him, "Oh, did you get a double flare?" And he goes, "What?" And I said, "You're supposed to use a double flare on these rather than a single flare." And he's a clever guy. He bent up all the brake lines. He bought the little hand bending tool. He figured out how much he needed. He took a piece of rope and took out the old broken brake lines and laid the rope next to it and figured out how much each line is going to need 18 inches for one and 14 inches for the other, and bent it all up. And then we went over to the local auto parts store, which was O'Reilly's, and said, "Do you lend tools?" And they said, they do. And I said, "How's it work?" They said, "Well, you buy it and then you bring it back and you just return it." So I said, "Well, we just need to make 4 flares. Can we just do it in the parking lot?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, just go out and use it." So we got the flares all made up, brought the tool back to the guy, thanked him for his time, and then went and put the car all back together. So it worked out good. So there you go. I answered a question about a car that I saw. Someone saw at a car show, and I think it's exactly the same one I did. It's called a Chevy Caravan. It's sometimes called an Opala. It was a car that was made in Brazil, and really, really kind of an interesting car. It's kind of an Opel, really, but they put the Chevrolet badge on it. Somebody wrote back to me and said, "Do you think it could have been a Monza or a Vega?" Nope, this one, at least the one I saw, was a Brazilian car, because I talked to the owner of it who imported it from Brazil. So, and these cars are starting to pop up all over the place because these older cars can now be imported, so it's kind of cool to see. Hey, that music means we need to go. I want to thank Jesse Elor from Greenwave Autos and our own Jesse for keeping us on the air and doing the good job he does every week. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, and be good to your car. Talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.